Go ahead.
Five. Okay. Good evening. Today is Wednesday, January 3rd, 2024 at 5 p.m. We are in the Brecksville Broadview Heights Education Center, 6638 Mill Road, Brecksville, Ohio. This is the annual organizational meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. The meeting will be live streamed on our district's YouTube channel. There is no public participation in this meeting. Item 1B, please join me and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item 1C, roll call.
Mr. Dosen,
Yes.
Mrs. Gaelic,
Yes.
Mrs. Kramer,
Yes.
Ms. Kwiatkowski.
Yes.
Ms. O'Mara.
Yes.
Item 2A, swearing in of new board members. Is that
That's me.
Greg will handle the chores.
Right hand. You can if you'd like. Whatever she does, you have to do it.
Okay, I think I got it.
So.
Oh, raise it.
You don't want to block her on the video though.
Fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I feel like my favorite was being introduced.
Okay. Do you, Lisa Gaelic, solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Ohio, and that you will faithfully and impartially discharge your duties as a member of the Board of Education of the Brecksville Broadview Heights City School District in Cuyahoga County, Ohio, to the best of your ability and in accordance with the laws in effect and hereafter to be enacted during your continuance in said office and until your successor is nominated and appointed?
I do.
Congratulations. And welcome aboard, on board.
Okay, you're up. Raise your right hand, please. Do you, Ava O'Mara, solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Ohio, and that you will faithfully and impartially discharge your duty as a member of the Board of Education of the Brecksville Broadview Heights City School District in Cuyahoga County in Ohio, to the best of your ability and in accordance with the laws now in effect and hereafter to be enacted during your continuance in said office and until your successor is nominated and appointed?
I do.
Congratulations. All right, very good. Welcome. Moving on to item 3A, 2024 president nominations. The floor is now open to accept nominations for president.
I'd like to nominate Mark Dosen for president.
Are there any other nominations? Moving on to item 3B, voting per the nominee in order of nomination. Do you handle that, Greg?
This will be a roll call for nominee number 1 and only would be Mr. Dosen. So in the affirmative, you would do a roll call for Mrs. Gaelic,
Yes.
Mrs. Kramer,
Yes.
Ms. Kwiatkowski,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Mara,
Yes.
Mr. Dosen.
Yes.
Okay. So that is for the nomination piece. And then this is the appointment of the nomination.
Okay, so item 3C, resolve to appoint Mark Dosen as board president. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Mrs. Gaelic,
Yes.
Mrs. Kramer,
Yes.
Ms. Kwiatkowski,
Yes.
Ms. O'Mara,
Yes.
Mr. Dosen.
Yes. I will now turn over the president pro tem duty to myself. Moving on to item 3E, we will now accept nominations for vice president. And I would like to nominate Ellen Kramer. Any further nominations? Okay, item 3F, the voting.
So this would be for Mrs. Kramer. Mrs. Gaelic,
Yes.
Mrs. Kramer,
Yes.
Ms. Kwiatkowski,
Yes.
Ms. O'Meara,
Yes.
Mr. Dosen,
Yes. Ellen is now officially vice president.
you have to do the second,
Oh,
or wait, yeah, the
wait.
appointment of it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Roll
Okay.
call again.
Item, not another roll call. Item 3G, resolve to appoint Ellen Kramer as board vice president.
Motion.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Mrs. Gaelic,
Yes.
Mrs. Kramer,
Yes.
Ms. Kwiatkowski.
Yes.
Ms. O'Meara, Mr. Dosen,
Yes. Now Ellen is officially vice president. Item 3I, resolve to approve the member order of voting, which shall be in alphabetical order with the exception of the board president, who will vote last. Robert's Rules of Order shall prevail in determining all board meeting procedural questions. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Mrs. Gaelic,
Yes.
Mrs. Kramer,
Yes.
Ms. Kwiatkowski.
Yes.
Ms. O'Meara, Mr. Dosen.
Yes. Item 4A, resolve to approve the full resolution below. Do I need to read the full resolution before?
We typically do not.
Okay, may I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Does anybody have any, well, we typically don't. So if anyone would like to read that, it's posted in our board agenda, but I'll move on to roll call.
And does Craig want to mention the two things that are new?
Sure. So this is a typical resolution that we do approve every year. There are two differences on here. Board policy does dictate that the board should be setting the per diem rate for meal allowances every year. So we have now moved that to the organizational meeting to $45 per day, exclusive of up to a 20% tip for the 2024 calendar year. So that is new this year. The other piece is an increase in this item here, which is to authorize the treasurer CFO to approve blanket purchase orders up to a maximum of $150,000. Last updated in 2020. A couple of different reasons for that is number one, obviously the cost of inflation has increased, as well as some of our purchase orders kind of would fit under this category, like cleaning supplies, for instance. We typically use one vendor. Rather than creating multiple purchase orders throughout the year, this allows us to kind of create one for the year in most cases. So that is the only other two, those are the only two changes to this policy this year versus last year.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Roll call.
Mrs. Gaelic?
Yeah.
Mrs. Kramer?
Yeah.
Ms. Kwiatkowski?
Yes.
Ms. O'Meara? Mr. Dosen?
Yes, motion carries 5-0. Item 5A, resolve to approve the appointments of Board of Education representatives as listed below. I guess we need to fill that in. Do we do the motion first and then fill it in? May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Legislative liaison to the Ohio School Board Association.
Who wants to do it?
Who wants to do it?
That was
I
your
think
role.
you were,
You've done
I
it
think you
before.
were in that last time, Ellen.
Yeah, it's, okay, sure, I can do it again. I'm just hesitant because maybe we need to beef up the responsibilities in that role, because I was basically just reporting on different legislation that had been either proposed or passed last year. So I can continue to do that.
Okay.
Is the other portion of that role attending the legislative meeting at OSBA?
Probably,
I think so,
yeah.
right.
Which is November, correct? Yeah.
And number 2 is representative for the Cuyahoga Valley Career Center, and I see Rachel is here, Rachel Malik. which we went through an exhaustive interview process, and we had a lot of great interest. We had a number of really strong candidates, and we decided on Rachel. So we're pleased to have you. And when we get to the other side of this vote, you'll be officially our representative to the Cuyahoga Valley Career Center. Is there any more on this agenda item, Craig, or no? All right. Any questions or comments? Roll call.
Mrs. Gaelic,
Yes.
Mrs. Kramer,
Yes.
Ms. Bykowski,
Yes.
Ms. O'Meara, Mr. Dosen.
Yes. Rachel, congratulations.
Yeah, welcome, welcome.
Moving on to item 6, resolve to approve the appointments of Board of Education representative to superintendent committees as listed below. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so here's where we have to divvy up who would like to do what. So financial liaison and audit committee was myself and Kathleen last year. I'm willing to continue to serve in the role unless there's 2 other people that really want to.
I'm willing to join you.
Okay. Everyone okay with that? All right, so we'll have Mark and Tish on number 1. Number 2, representative to Permanent Improvement Committee. I was on that and Ellen was on that. I have an interest in continuing on that. I don't know if Ellen does or if somebody else does.
Like to do that, if that would be okay.
Okay. Sure.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay. You want to arm wrestle?
No, no. I would like to talk to you though.
Okay.
Okay, so for permanent improvement, it'll be Mark and Ava. Number 3, representatives to the board policy committee. So that was Tish and Kathleen last year.
I'm happy to step aside if someone else feels incredibly passionate about board policy. Otherwise, I mean, I will continue if no one else is interested.
I'm happy to do it.
I would love to see you in that role, you know.
I would be interested in it too.
Okay. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, it's just, no worries.
So-
Do something else.
So
Lisa?
Ellen and Lisa. Okay. Number 4, representative to Transportation Appeals Committee. I've been in that role for a number of years, and
It's really
last
hard.
year we had no appeals. So I'm willing to continue in that role unless somebody else really wants it.
I'm interested, but if you want to continue, I mean, I'm fine as well, you know.
So you tell me, you want it, you can take it. Probably have like 10 appeals next year.
Well, then I'm gonna let you stay. I'm just gonna.
You don't want to jinx it?
Yeah, I don't want to jinx it. So I'll let him.
Okay,
stay.
I'll
Not a big
remain
deal.
on the Transportation Appeals Committee, representative of the PSO Council.
I'd like to do that if no one minds.
Yeah, that's fine. I've done that the last
Oh.
couple of years, so I'm happy to
Okay.
pass that off.
All right, so Lisa will be PSO Council representative. Number 6, representative to Brecksville Broadview Heights Schools Foundation.
I would like to, if no one else has any interest.
Okay, yeah, Kathleen did that last year.
No, that was Brittany.
Brittany.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Yeah,
it was Brittany. Okay, so we'll have Tish as the foundation representative to the Safety and Security Committee.
That was myself and Brett Wigman.
I'm happy to do that.
I was like, yeah, I was happy to continue as well.
Ellen and Ava,
That's fine.
good with that? Okay. Is that it?
Do I need to recap it all or ready to?
Yeah, why don't you recap us just so everybody.
Sure. So for financial liaison and audit committee, we have Mr. Dosen and Ms. Bykowski. For the permanent improvement committee, it would be Mr. Dosen and Ms. O'Meara. For the board policy committee, it would be Mrs. Kramer and Mrs. Gaelic. Transportation appeals committee would be Mr. Dosen. Representative to the PSO council would be Mrs. Gaelic. Representative to the Brecksville Broadview Heights Schools Foundation would be Mrs. Bykowski. And representatives to the safety and security committee would be Ms. O'Meara and Mrs. Kramer.
would be appropriate or inappropriate, maybe at a later time, but the oversight on my part was reestablishing the sustainability committee. We met right before break, and I'd like to see it again. I don't know if we can do it at this meeting or if we can ask you, but would like to see us bring that back onto the agenda.
Okay.
Okay.
Craig, procedurally, what do we?
I would probably wait till the next meeting.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Any other comments or questions on our assignments? Last chance to change your mind? No? All right. Roll call.
Mrs. Gaelic,
Yes.
Mrs. Kramer.
Yeah.
Mrs. Spikowski.
Yes.
Ms. O'Meara. Mr. Dosen.
Yes. Motion carries 5-0. Item 7A, resolve to set board member compensation at $100 per meeting effective January 1st, 2024. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
And just for background, this has been the rate for many years since I've been on the board, so it hasn't changed. Any questions or comments? Roll call.
Mrs. Gaelic,
Yes.
Mrs. Kramer.
Yes.
Mrs. Spikowski.
Yes.
Ms. O'Meara. Mr. Dosen.
Yes, motion carries 5-0. Item 8A, resolve to approve the following list of firms for legal counsel representation during 2024. Fisher and Phillips, Squire Patton and Boggs, Weston Hurd, Kingo and Bear, Enos Britton, the Riley Law Firm, and then additionally, the Ohio School Board Association and the law directors of the cities of Brexville and Broadview Heights may be used as appropriate. And just as an FYI too, we can also change this list throughout the year. So if we run into a situation where we want to engage additional legal services, we can append the list and go that route.
Motion.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Can we, just for the public, go through each firm and speak to what they
Like what they
represent,
do?
what they represent us for, or provide for us?
Sure. So many of the law firms do multiple areas, but we use them kind of specifically. Fisher and Phillips does our tax, they're like our property tax attorneys. Squire Patton Boggs is our bond counsel, and they do our annual information filing. Weston Hurd we use primarily for special education, but sometimes other general counsel. Jingo and Bear is more for general counsel. Enos Britton is also kind of general counsel depending on each topic, and a lot of times they do employment contracts for us. And the Riley Law Firm primarily does our construction, as our construction attorney or building attorney. So we've used.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Roll call.
Mrs. Gaelic,
Yes.
Mrs. Kramer.
Yes.
Ms. Spikowski.
Yes.
Ms. O'Meara.
Yes.
Mr. Dosen.
Yes, motion carries 5-0. Item 9A, resolve to approve membership in the Ohio School Board Association for the calendar year 2024 in the amount of $11,043. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? We've been part of the organization. I would assume most districts are part of OSBA. So, questions or comments?
Are you able, just for general knowledge, what do we get for our $11,000? What does?
That's a great question.
Advocacy, number one, our school board association provides that for all public school districts across the state of Ohio. As well as they can be kind of on call for any board member if we have any questions or concerns or just general guidance, instead of maybe going to one of our law firms to go to OSBA for that as well. They offer different trainings and things that are available to us as members of the organization. Those are the main things that I have been involved with OSBA.
They also send out communications really frequently that I read regularly, and I find it very, very helpful. I mean, they keep you up to date on what's going on across the state, and they condense it very well. They summarize it very well. So I think that service is invaluable.
But the legislative action updates are very important.
Yes.
And then their professional development for board members is really, really good and incredible. So, I mean, to Mr. Harrison's point, they're on call and they will support us in any way we really would need it.
I know I'm signed up for a new board member training. Did you sign up for it too? Okay. But there's trainings for new board members and just at all different levels. And
Yes.
we all just went to Capitol Conference.
They do have a legal department too, and I know over my 12 years, I've called them on a number of occasions just because it's part of our subscription, so to speak. So there's no billing for that. And, you know, you can get in touch with a lawyer who you can talk to and run some scenarios by, and they can give you feedback. So, and I have done that a number of times over the last 12 years. So very good. Other questions or comments? Roll call.
Mrs. Gaelic,
Yes.
Mrs. Kramer,
Yes.
Mrs. Bykowski,
Yes.
Ms. O'Meara,
Yes.
Mr. Dosen.
Yes, motion carries 5-0. Item 10A, resolve to approve legal assistance fund participation with Ohio School Board Association for the calendar year 2024 in the amount of $250. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Do you want to comment on what we get when we're as part of this association?
And this is truly the hotline that we use as a school district.
Okay.
Many times it's not our first thought, unfortunately, to use because, you know, in our day-to-day workings, the firms that we have have the history of our district,
Yeah.
which helps us a lot. But if we'd ever need a second opinion, this would be the place to go.
Okay.
And I think they use Ennis Britton, right?
I think
that's who their hotline is for.
one that they have obtained or have a retainer with.
Any other comments or questions?
You find them to be pretty responsive.
I've never
we-
used
never-
OSBA for that.
Okay. In my other life, they are very responsive. When calls are made. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I've called there a couple of times too, and I thought they were really helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it's well worth $250.
Good. Roll call.
Mrs. Gaelic,
Yes.
Mrs. Kramer,
Yes.
Ms. Bykowski,
Yes.
Ms. O'Meara.
Yes.
Mr. Dosen.
Yes, motion carries 5-0. Item 11A, resolve to appoint the following staff for 2024 staff positions. Title IX Hearing Officer, Assistant Superintendent and Director of Public Pupil Services, Anti-Harassment Grievance Officer, Assistant Superintendent and Director of Pupil Services, 504 ADA Compliance Officer, Assistant Superintendent and Director of Pupil Services, Civil Rights Coordinator, Assistant Superintendent and Director of Pupil Services, Homeless Liaison, Director of Pupil Services, Suspension Appeal Officer as designee for the board, Assistant Superintendent. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Did anything change on these? These are just
No.
same. Yeah,
And
okay,
we've been working in board policy, just so you know, of making sure we're putting titles instead of names.
right,
So,
yes,
because when there's changes or movement, we don't have to go through the whole policy update piece.
right. Yeah, no, I remember the usage of names. Any other comments or questions?
These are a big deal. I just want to say these are really big deal. And a lot of this responsibility, you know, rests on two people's shoulders and it is a lot of work. So kudos to Mr. Wyckoff and Mrs. Spangler for a large majority of this. And then I don't know if we're to you yet with the records, but it's a lot of work. So a lot of appreciation to those individuals.
Roll call.
Mrs. Gaelic,
Yes.
Mrs. Kramer,
Yes.
Ms. Bykowski,
Yes.
Ms. O'Meara.
Yes.
Mr. Dosen.
Yes, motion carries 5-0. Item 12, 12A, resolve to recognize the treasurer, CFO, and the director of pupil services as district records officer, DRO. The individuals in this position will also serve as the Brexville-Broadview Heights Board of Education designees in this regard. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
So, you know, we do get a number of public records requests and most of them end up, you know, in Craig's office to take care of. So this just continues that assignment.
Yes, and like people services sometimes as it relates to student records, but other records are done through my office. And as the auditors have recently pointed out, to make sure that Mrs. Galick and Ms. O'Mara do their public records training as new elected officials, which we will get you set up for.
Oh, joy.
It's a great time.
Mhm.
Any questions or comments? Roll call.
Mrs. Galick,
Yeah.
Mrs. Kramer,
Yes.
Mrs. Kwiatkowski,
Yes.
Ms. O'Mara, Mr. Dosen.
Yes, motion carries 5-0. Item 13A, resolve to approve the 2024 Ohio minimum wage rate of $10.45 per hour. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
So this is just coming in compliance with the new state minimum.
Yes,
Okay.
as of January 1st.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Roll call.
Mrs. Galick,
Yes.
Mrs. Kramer,
Yes.
Ms. Kwiatkowski,
Yes.
Ms. O'Mara, Mr. Dosen.
Yes, motion carries 5-0. Item 14A, resolve to recognize the district support organizations listed below in accordance with Board Policy 9211. Parent School Organization, PSOs, Parent School Organization Council, Band Boosters, Orchestra Boosters, Vocal Music Boosters, B Athletic Boosters, Brexville Broadview Heights Schools Foundation, Brexville Broadview Heights High School Speech Team Boosters, Brexville Broadview Heights High School Robotics Boosters. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
So this list hasn't changed, right? This is just the constant list. These are the organizations we approve every year. Very good. Any questions or comments?
The organizations are put forth by our superintendent, correct? I mean, and.
Yep. And I mean, much of what our students enjoy in these organizations, as well as staff with the PSOs, we couldn't do what we do without their support. I mean, it's unwavering support in that, and all the extras and the above and beyond come from these groups. So I just want to make sure that they understand how much gratitude we have for the service they provide to our school district.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Any other comments or questions? Roll call.
Mrs. Galick,
Yes.
Mrs. Kramer,
Yes.
Ms. Kwiatkowski,
Yes.
Ms. O'Mara,
Yes.
Mr. Dosen.
Yes, motion carries 5-0. Item 15A, resolve to approve the 2024 Board of Education meeting dates as attached. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
So a slight change for this year is that we are beginning our meetings, our normal meetings, regular meetings at 6 p.m. versus 7 p.m. So there'll be an hour earlier. And we moved it up to, was it the third Wednesday? The third Wednesday of the month in general, because there were less conflicts with some of the holidays that we had to move around. So hopefully everybody reviewed these and is okay with them. Any questions or comments?
My only comment is hopefully the next newsletter that we district-wide send out will just note this, because it's been the last or the fourth Wednesday for quite some time, just so people are aware of it.
Good point.
We will make sure to do that.
Roll call.
Mrs. Galick,
Yeah.
Mrs. Kramer,
Yeah.
Mrs. Kwiatkowski,
Yes.
Ms. O'Mara,
Yeah.
Mr. Dosen.
Yes, motion carries 5-0. Item 16A, resolve to adjourn the meeting. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Before we do the roll call, we do have a special meeting that starts at 6 o'clock, and that's an executive session only. So just making note of that. And then our next regularly scheduled board meeting is the January 17th. So roll call.
Mrs. Galick,
Yes.
Mrs. Kramer,
Yes.
Ms. Kwiatkowski,
Yes.
Ms. O'Mara,
Yes.
Mr. Dosen.
Yes, our meeting is adjourned. Have a great evening and Happy New Year, everyone.